Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to find you today. And we're going to talk about cloud infrastructures, and we are going to build a real use case on Brainboard. So we'll be starting in a few minutes, just the time we wait the others to join us. So see you in 2 minutes. I'm really happy to see a lot of people joining us today from different time zones. Thanks a lot, guys. I think we can get started, Tarek.
Yes.
Yes. So for today, we have a quick presentation about Brainboard, the company. We're going to introduce ourselves and talk about who we are, what we are building, and amazing things that we are working on. And we're going to share with you what's coming next. And I'm here with Tarek, who joined us a few months ago.
Hello, everyone.
So I got a quick presentation we go through. Then we go design a real-time use case in Brainboard. So let's get started. So for today, we're going to have an overview of the company and share with you the news and the latest news about Brainboard. And we're going to talk about key features, what Brainboard allows you to do, and how it may help for the teams. And also, we're going to build a Kubernetes cluster on AWS. So the Kubernetes, we're going to design it from scratch, configure it, and also deploy it in Brainboard, and we'll see how it works. So an overview about the company. It has been founded in 2019. So with my co-founder, Jeremy, we were both working at Scaleway, where I was a CTO, and he was leading the internal platform design at Scaleway. And when we worked together, we realized that engineers struggle a lot to build and manage cloud infrastructures, and we wanted to solve this problem for them. So that's why we launched Brainboard in early 2020. And since then, we are improving the product and making it even better every day. So, and we raised funds the last year and recently joined Y Combinator, which is the biggest incubator in the world. And now we have two teams. So we have two offices in Paris and San Francisco. So we are open in San Francisco, and we'll be happy to assist our clients there and help them build cloud infrastructures. I see familiar names connecting. I'm really happy to see you all. Gulzar, DB, Mahmoud, all of you, Sebastian. So welcome, guys. And we started a partnership. So we are already partnered with AWS, and we are working on the partnership with Microsoft now. And we are partnered with some consulting companies like Zasoft and Middleway. And we will be also opening partnership to more companies that want to build with us the future of the cloud. So a quick overview of the features that Brainboard allows you, that Brainboard brings. We have two categories. We put them in two categories. The first one is build and share, and the second one is all integration with the existing workflows and the existing way to manage infrastructures. So roughly 5 important one. So we have bidirectional design from infrastructure as code into the graph and vice versa, and mainly on Terraform. So the infrastructure as code and the code generated is based on Terraform. We're going to see all of it in the demo. And the second part is that Brainboard allows you to structure the way you manage cloud infrastructure. So you have projects, inventory view of the project, environment, and architectures, and it allows you to put security on every layer. That's why we have airbag and security. It allows you also to build your own catalog of templates or use the public one for inspiration. And I will show you later how we convert architectures into templates, distribute it within the organization, use it, and get inspiration from the public ones. And the fifth point is collaboration and team management. So all engineers within a team or within a company can get connected to the same architecture and design cloud infrastructures all together. And this is like the unique point that we provide, because collaboration now is mainly done through Git. Like we push code into Git and we wait for our colleagues to review it or not, approve it, test it, and then push it into production. So we took this way of collaboration to the next level, where we can design in real time cloud infrastructure. And I'm going to do it with Tarek. So we'll be designing together the infrastructure. The second part is integrations. We allows you to integrate Brainboard with your existing way to do infrastructure as code. So that's why we support different kind of integrations with GitHub, GitLab, Azure DevOps, and also allows you to manage credentials in Brainboard, and allows you to and give you like fine tuned and granular scope on how you put the cloud credentials. And the exciting news is now you can import existing infrastructures into Brainboard. And I will be sharing with you features that we will be releasing in a few weeks, which is importing an existing infrastructure directly from the cloud provider. So let's say you do not have Terraform for your infra, you do not have automation, you do not have infrastructure as code. You plug Brainboard into your preferred cloud provider. We bring all the infrastructure, all the resources, we give you the graphic, and we'll write the Terraform code for you. So this is huge, and it's going to help a lot of engineers and companies out there. We really want you to do your work at the best way possible. So all the features that we have came from your feedback. So thanks a lot. It allows us to build a product that helps us all. Cloud architects, DevOps, SREs, developers, anyone working on the infrastructure. So thanks again for all your feedback that you provided. So let's move now into building a Kubernetes cluster from scratch. So maybe it's going to take between 20 and 25 minutes. Then we'll be answering the questions. So feel free to ask the questions, by the way, as we go on the chat. We will be looking at it, and we'll be asking all the questions later. And please feel free to ask questions, not only questions related to the architecture, but any kind of question about Brainboard, about your use cases. If you want to see something in Brainboard, how you want to do it, we'll be building it. I will be happy to show you that. So I move now into interface of Brainboard. So here, this is interface of Brainboard. And just a reminder, Brainboard is a solution to visually design and manage cloud infrastructures. So you have two main components. The first one is designing systems, and the second one is managing cloud infrastructures. So, and we have built it from the ground up in this mindset that you design and you manage in the same platform. And to start with Brainboard, you have 4 ways. So you can either choose from the templates to get started quickly. There are a lot of templates here. These templates have been published either by Brainboard engineers or the community. Some of you wanted to share architectures, cloud architectures with the others, so we thank you for that. and keep doing it. It's really good because it allows us to save a lot of time and not reinvent the wheel. So you can get started with the templates. The second way to start with the Brainboard is importing from an existing infrastructure. So we support importing from GitHub, GitLab, or from files. So you can upload your files and see them in Brainboard. And the third option is importing existing infrastructure from the cloud provider. And I will show you at the end of the demo, at the end of the use case, a small demo of how we import from the cloud provider, we generate the graphic and the code. But also you can start from scratch. So for now, for today, we're going to start from scratch. We're going to call it AWS EKS infrastructure. And I'm going to save it. So for the EKS, I will be starting with the region. So when you design infrastructure in Brainboard, you have here all the cloud providers that we support. For today, we selected AWS. For the next time, we will be selecting another cloud provider, maybe Azure or GCP or Scaleway. So feel free also to request your preferred cloud provider for which you want to see the use case, and we will be happy to do it all together. So when you select the cloud provider, you have here the complete list of all the resources available at the cloud provider. These resources are also the resources that you find at Terraform. And we organize the information. We put them into categories exactly as you find it in the cloud provider. So we have compute, network, storage, DB, and so on. So for example, for AWS, we are talking about more than 700 resources. So that's why you use a search to find the resources you want. So I'm going to start with the region. First, I'm going to add a region, and I'm going to use Ohio, as I do not have resources in Ohio that I will show you a complete deployment on it. So I choose the region. I make it a bit bigger to be able to put more resources on it. Yes, this is it. And now I'm going to add a VPC. So I'm going to search for a VPC and add a VPC here. And when you search, Brainboard gives you the complete list of all resources containing the word VPC. So either in the name or the description, which is really helpful if you want, for example, resources that doesn't contain the keyword in the name, but in the description. So it's really helpful. So I'm going to add the VPC here, and I'm going to configure it. So when you add the resource in Brainboard, you have in this configuration menu all the parameters supported by the cloud provider and also by Terraform simplified in a configuration menu. So for example, here, I want, for example, for the Sage block, I want 10.0.0.0/16. And I want to enable DNS host names and DNS support. So extremely easy. I can configure this information and save it. And Brainboard adds, by default, 2 tags. The first one is the environment, the name of the environment. And the second one is the architecture UID. In a way that allows you to find your resources easily, either in the console or if you want another tool, if you use another tool to get the list of the resources. So I'm going to save it. And inside this VPC, I'm going to add 2 availability zones. So here, I'm going to add the availability zone 1. And when I add the resource, Brainboard is able to detect when I add a resource inside another. So maybe for the availability zone, it's not obvious, but I'm going to show you for another resource how it works. So, and when I add availability zone, for example, here it is in the region Ohio, Brainboard gives me all the available availability zones in this region. So here, for example, I know that I have 3. I select this one, save it, make it a little bigger. I'm going to duplicate this resource and move it here. And I'm going to choose a different availability zone. So here, 2B. So now I'm going to add a security group. So I'm going to add first the subnets on my cluster. So here, look for the subnets. VPC subnet, I add it here. Yeah, this is what I talked to you about. So when you add the resource inside Brainboard, Brainboard is able to understand and detect any interaction between the components. So what we literally did, we translated our knowledge as cloud architects and engineers into a tool. So that's why when Brainboard detects the dependency, it also fills the information for you and fills it in the right way. For example, it added here the VPC ID, it added the region, and added availability zone as well. And all I have to do is to add the network settings. For example, here 10.0.1.0/24. And I'm going to save it. I'm going to take another subnet here and do the same thing. So here, I'm going to call it, I'm going to give it a network configuration.2.0/24. So here is the first blocks of my architecture. And when you design architecture and you configure it, you can see the Terraform code that will be generated on the fly for you. So at any time you want to see the Terraform code, you just switch into the deploy and you have the Terraform code generated on the fly, whatever the configuration is. And now I'm going to add security group. I'm just going to look for it, security here. And it takes security group here. I add it inside the VPC and the configuration. So it automatically detected the VPC. And I add like Kubernetes security group. And I'm going to configure the egress and the ingress. So here, so for the egress and ingress, I'm going to keep it open for the egress. Just here. In the network 0.0.0.0/0. And from 0 to 0. And the protocol, I'm going to use put -1 for any protocol. And by the way, we give you the link to the documentation, to Terraform documentation. So at any time you want to understand how to configure these resources, you just click on the link. It takes you into the right page of the documentation, and you can read the examples and use them. For example, here, I'm going to use this example because it's what I'm looking for. And here in the egress, in the ingress, I'm going to choose. So you have the possibility either to use the inline configuration or use separate components, like for example, security group rule that you see it here and configure it. So this is simple configurations. I'm gonna use both of them. So I'm gonna use from 443 and protocol TCP to 443, and that's it. And the description HTTPS, and I'm going to save it. So I save it here and make it bigger to contain all the resources that I have. So now I'm going to add my Kubernetes cluster. So I'm going to add the AKS here. I have it here. Add it in the security group. I'm going to configure it later because I need more information to configure it, and I will show you how. And I'm going to add the node pool, yes, node group here. And again, I'm going to configure it later because I need to add more resources. So now I will be adding a networking part from to handle the traffic from the internet inside the cluster and all the way around. So I'm going to add for that Internet Gateway. So Internet Gateway here, I'm going to add it into the VPC. And the configuration, it detected the VPC automatically, which is just great. This is all what I need. And I'm going to put it here in the middle. All right. And now I'm going to add route table. So here, I'm going to add a route table. Yes, route table. And I'm going to add it here in the VPC. And now when I configure the resources, so Brainboard helps me with the configuration menu. Through the configuration menu, helps me to configure all what I need. For example, here, I'm going to, for the route, for the networking, I'm going to add 0.0.0.0/0. But the most important one is that for the gateway ID, when I type gateway, Brainboard gives me, suggested to me the gateway that is already present in the graph. And when I put dot, Brainboard will give me all the exported attribute from the gateway, which is really helpful because you do not need to go back and forth into documentation to understand all what is exported or not and how to use it. So Brainboard guide you through that. And like we took it to the next level, when you select the ID here, Brainboard creates the link between the two resources. So I'm going to make the VPC a little bit bigger here. And yes, that like that. So Brainboard created this row here that you can see. I'm going to zoom a bit. That represents the dependency between the route table and the internet gateway. And now that I have added the internet gateway, I need to add an internet route table association into the subnet to associate the route table with my subnet. So here I'm going to add route table association, one in this subnet. And again, as Brainboard detects all the layers, so it suggested all the layers, but also allows me to configure it. So here it added the subnet automatically for me. And for route table ID, I'm going to add the ID of the route table, which is just type here route. Okay, when I hover, by the way, when I hover, Brainboard highlights the resources for me. So here, I'm going to select this and put ID. So when I select ID, again, Brainboard creates a link for me. And like graphically, you can customize it the way you want. So graphically, we support any kind of customization. So I'm going to put it a little bit nicer here to put this link. And I'm going to add route table association in this subnet. And I'm going to do the same, exactly the same, and tell that here I'm going to use the route table. Yes, this route table dot ID. And again, to make it nicer, I can change the connector here. Yes, because it's, yes, like that way. And now I will be adding IAM roles and attachment policies to be able to connect my cluster to a role, and we will be able to support like CNI and a registry and a worker node. So for example, now I'm going to add a IAM role. Yes, this one. I'm going to add it here into the region. These are global. They are not contained into a VPC. So that's why graphically, I do not put them into the VPC. And for this role, I'm going to take, the configuration of this role here. I'm going to just copy paste it from what I actually have here. And by the way, Brainboard in the configuration, if you want to write code, like it allows you here when you open this, this is an embedded VS Code editor where you can write exactly what you want. So for example, here it added the policy for me that target the service EC2 to be able to create worker nodes. So I just add it here and save it, and Brainboard will generate the right code for me. So I'm going to keep the rest of the presentation as the rest of the parameters as it is. And I'm going to save it, and I'm going to call it here just EC2. I add EC2 to be able to differentiate it from the second one and clone it quickly, and I put it here. And here, instead of the EC2, I'm going to take AKS to specify that I want to target the AKS. Now that I have the roles. for the Kubernetes cluster to be created, I need to attach policies, role policies to it. So I'm going to here select role policies, role policy, yes, policy attachment. So I'm going to take the first one, which is, for example, for the CNI. And just copy the CNI that I have here. And put it in the ARN. This is the ARN I'm looking for, AKS for networking. So I use the native CNI provided with by AWS, and you can use yours. Like for the CNA, you have a lot of choices. I choose this one because it's we can set up it easily. And I wanted to show you also the deployment. So we will be creating physically the cluster on AWS and show you how it works. And for the role, I'm going to attach it to the role, which is the role that I have here. So this one, I'm going to call it dot name. And that's it. And I'm going to save it. So, and I'm going to do the same for the other resources. I'm sorry, I'm going to de-zoom a bit and make the region bigger to be able to put more policy attachment. And in the name, I can call it here CNI. Easily find it. And I'm going to clone it. So I'm going to put it here, another one. For example, this one, let's say for the registry. I'm going to create one for the registry. I'm going to take it here from what I have and adjust in the configuration. Instead of using CNI, I'm going to say now container registry. And I give the same role. It's attached to the same role. And so just make this here a little bit down. And I'm going to create the third one. So this one called registry. And I'm going to create a third one for the worker. So here, that's why I need to call it here in the configuration. I choose AKS worker node policy. And I save it. I just call it here worker node. Now I'm going to do the same for the other part. So these IAM roles and the role policy attachment are mainly for the workers. And now I'm going to do the same for the AKS and in the other side. So I'm going to take a role policy attachment here. And I'm going to give it the first one. It's going to be the resource controller. Here, and I'm gonna, for the role, yes, it's this role. Yes, dot name. I'm gonna select it, and the link will be created. And again, I'm gonna clone it into the second one with Command D or Control D, if you use Windows. I'm gonna call it here just resource controller. Resource controller. And for the second one, yes, for the second one, I'm gonna cluster policy because cluster policy is needed. Otherwise, the cluster will not be created. So here, cluster policy, and I replace this one with the cluster policy. And now I configured my IAM roles. So what is remaining now is to do the link between the cluster AKS and the IAM role, and the other part between the node group and the IAM roles, and then we'll be doing the link between the cluster and the AKS node. So now I'm going to open the configuration of my cluster here. And okay, I open the configuration of my cluster. And for the role, I'm going to select the role that I have. So not this one, but yes, the second one. Dot IRN here. So Brainboard created the link between the both of them. And now in the security group IDs, I add security group, this one, .id. So I'm going to add it. And for the subnets, I'm going to add the two subnets that I have. So the first subnet here, .id, and the second subnet here, .id, and create it. So now I'm ready to go with my cluster. So this is mainly what I need to configure in my cluster. You can configure all the other parts, but this is like the minimum that I can have to have my cluster up and running. And I'm going to call it here, by the way, Brainboard cluster. I'm going to save it. And I will do the same for the node group. Here for the node group, I will be doing the same, like here. Yes, yes. What I need to do, the cluster name. I'm gonna give it the cluster that I have here. .name. And for the role RN, I need to choose the role. So yes, this one, the first one. .rn. I'm gonna add it here. And for the subnet IDs, I'm going to add the two subnets, of course. The first one .id, and the second one .id as well. And for the scaling capacity, you can choose any scaling that fits your requirement. I'm going to keep it simple, 1 for the desired capacity, and max 1 and min 1. So, and this is it. So here, you can configure the rest of the parameters, but for me, this is all what is needed to build my cluster. And here we are almost ready to go and see the second part of Brainboard, where we see the complete code and we'll be able to deploy it. So now here, I go into the deploy part. And now all what I have configured, I have the Terraform code generated on the fly for me. So here is the Terraform code of all the configuration. And now with this Terraform code, now I will show you how we integrate Brainboard with your existing workflows. So with this code, you have the possibility to plug it into your own repo. We do support 3 repos, Azure DevOps, GitHub, and GitLab. So I'm going to use GitHub for this demo. And I'm going to call it, I'm going to put it into Brainboard, save it. With that, I can create a pull request. So now I can do a pull request and call it AWS EKS cluster here. I'm going to save it. So Brainboard will packages all the necessary files to create the pull request, creates quickly the pull request, and gives me the link. So here is the link that takes me to my AKS cluster that I created today. And I have all the files. And I will show you the different files that Brainboard generates. So here I have the code. And you see, we do it together in like 20 minutes. We were able to build a cluster, have the code, and push it to my repo. And I can trigger any kind of action here from my repo. But the most important thing is that Brainboard allows you to do the deployment. So here in the actions, I can do a plan. So which means this is the Terraform plan, by the way. So which means that I want to have an overview of the deployment without deploying the infrastructure. And what happens when we do the plan? Brainboard creates an execution environment on the fly, executes actions, and gives me the output in real time. So here I see the output of my actions. So everything is clean. That's fine. That's good. So now I can go and deploy my Kubernetes cluster. So we're gonna do it live. So now I'm gonna deploy it. So here is my AWS subscription, and I'm gonna use AKS. I'm gonna choose AKS here, and cluster. I do not have any cluster here. So and now we'll be deploying with Brainboard. So when I do apply and hit apply, again Brainboard will do the same mechanics, create an execution environment on the fly, converts the graphics into Terraform code, executes the actions, and gives me the output. So now Brainboard will be creating all the resources that I asked. And it's super fast. Like here, it created the roles, it is creating the policy attachments, and we'll be creating the VPC and the subnets and the cluster. So it may take some time because this is related to AWS. Now it's creating the cluster. This is mainly related to AWS. It takes some time to get created, but at least when I refresh, I have here my cluster. Brainboard cluster with a version. I click on it, and now it's creating. It may take time to have the node group created and all the remaining information, but I was able to create it quickly. So now I keep it creating the cluster, and we go to show you more important features for you, like when you work within a team, and especially when you collaborate within your colleagues. For example, here I have a colleague of mine, which is Tarek, and he's just get connected this architecture. I see his picture here, and when he selects any kind of a node, for example, here he's selecting the node, taking it out of the subnet, or putting it back, or doing any kind of interaction, I will be able to see it, and we will be able to configure like in real time together infrastructures, and we work collaboratively. And this is like even us at Brainboard, it helps us to design quickly infrastructures, either for demos or to share with our users, or maybe you were one of our customers that we worked together to build one of your use cases, one of your scenarios, and we use it that way to build collaboratively cloud infrastructures. One of the important features also that I wanted to show you is when you work with infrastructures is to use variables, and it makes a lot of sense. Like everyone use variables, and we give you this possibility. For example, now I can say I want to put the networking for the VPC or the subnet into a variable. So I'm gonna call it like, for example, here Cedar for VPC of type, and give it type. I'm gonna give it a type string, and I give it default value 10.0.0.0/0, and I save it. So once I save this variable here, I will be able to go into the resource and use it directly. So here, instead of using the clear value of the network, I'm gonna just use the variable, select from it, and use it. And it's super easy. And to make it even more like easier for you to work with the variables, you can define variables on the fly. For example, here I'm gonna just take the subnet. It's better. We'll take let's take a route table here. For example, for the route table, instead of using this network, I'm just gonna call it variable.route network. And when I move the cursor, Brainboard will create this variable for me, route network. So I'm gonna save it. Didn't work for this one. I'm gonna choose maybe a back in the VPC. And for example, here, I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna use VPC 1. When I take the cursor out of it, Brainboard will create this variable. I don't know why it doesn't work here. This is demo effect, but you can create it on the fly. So, and once it is created on the fly, it will be available here, and you can change it. You can give it a different name. And what is important here, what we provide you with the variables, we provide you the possibility to define variables at different levels. For example, you can define variables that are at the organization level, which means variables shared between all the projects and all environments. Maybe, for example, you want to enforce naming conventions or security rules. You can put some of them in variables that anyone can see and use. You can define variables at the project level, which means all environments and architecture within the project will share this same variable, and the same thing for environment, and the same thing for architectures. This is in terms of variables. We also support, talking about like variables and what works with Terraform and so on, we also support modules, Terraform modules, and we're gonna do a live demo here. So for example, here, I'm gonna look for Terraform IAM module. This is a live demo. I take the first one. All what I need to do to take is the source. Here is the source one. And I go into Brainboard, and I'm going to add it here. And I give it a name like use case demo. When I add it, so it will be added in the left bar. It will be added and use any other resource. But the magical thing is when you drag and drop the module, Brainboard will bring all the information about this module here. And we organize information from the module. So here you have the mandatory information that you need to put in the module, and you have the optional parameters. And we put them into, we understand them when it's Boolean, when it's a list, when it's something else. And we give you the documentation. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I was mute. Hope you hear me now. So here, I added, for example, Lambda. What I was talking about is versioning. So here, for example, I have the possibility to create versions. I have created a version here, and now I'm doing modification here, add some Lambda, maybe delete some resources here, for example, and again, delete some resources and create a new version, like add new modifications. And I save it. So now I have a graphically track of every modification I've done. So if I want to roll back my changes, I want to go to the first version, I just click on it here, and it takes me to the first version. If I want to go to the latest version, I just choose the latest version, and so on. So it allows you to graphically track any changes you do, and visibly, quickly, you can see what changed and what happens to my infrastructure. And because the code will be automatically generated, so the code will reflect any version that you choose. So this is in terms of versioning. Let's go back to the initiate commit, and I will show you now. For example, I created this cluster that contains all of them. It is validated. It contains all the naming conventions, the best practices, and so on. Now I have the possibility to convert it into a template. So I was talking about the templates and the possibility to create your private templates catalog. I will show you how you do that in Brainboard. So now I go here, and I want to convert it into a template. You have a small warning to remove the sensitive information. And then next, you have the possibility to keep it either private or public. We're going to keep it private to show you how you create your private template catalog. And give it a name here is, I'm going to call it thank you brain borders. And I'm going to save it into the catalog. So it will be available here. So now let's say I want to use this architecture in another environment, or maybe one of my colleagues want to use it in another environment, let's say production. I just go here, and I'm going to select thank you brain borders. I have this architecture. I clone it, and in literally 2 seconds, I have the architecture, I have the Terraform code, and I can literally deploy it in 2 seconds. That's why we advise you to use the variables that reflects the new environment, but it makes life extremely easier. You just need the variable, change the variables, and deploy it. So this is in terms of templates. And as I'm talking about the templates, you have here the templates catalog. You have the public and the private one. When you hide the public, you will see the private one, but you can also get inspiration from the public one. So we talked about AWS, but now, for example, if I want serverless in Azure, let's say I just here have a serverless architecture for Azure, and I clone it, get inspiration from it. This is architecture. I'm going to inspect the code and see the code. It's fine. Okay, I'm going to just rename it and change some variables, and we'll be able to use it and deploy it. So this is like we build together a use case, and it show you like through this use case how you design, how quickly you can design. So which means you save a lot of time from design and getting the code, pushing it into your preferred repo, plugging it into your workflows, having the documentation, but also extending the way you work with your colleagues through templates, live collaboration. And you can also write documentation, the README file here. So for example, I'm going to write here architecture one here. I write Markdown on the left side, and Brainboard generates HTML on the right side in real time. And I can build I can write any kind of documentation. I can also include emojis, for example, for better communication. I said, okay, I'm happy with the use case, and you have the documentation here. So, and the last part that I wanted to show you, as we are, I want to respect our timing. We planned 45 minutes for the demo, like to be able to, for you to keep in mind how it works and the most important features in Brainboard. I wanted to show you, as promised, the import of an existing infrastructure. I read that some have issues with, okay, everything is good. All right. So here, the possibility to import an existing infrastructure within Brainboard. So here, let's say I have an existing infrastructure in AWS, in Azure, or GCP, or Scaleway, and I want to import it and to create Terraform for it. So sometimes if you have a bigger infrastructure, let's say you have more than 2,000 resources, it's going to take months, maybe 5-6 months. And you all know how long it's going to take, because you need to go to the console, read the documentation of Terraform, look for the right resource, and write the right Terraform block, and you're going to do it for 2,000 resources, which is, it literally takes few months. So I'm going to call it here use case. And I will import my infrastructure from my AWS account. When I click next, so Brainboard will tells you that this operation sometimes may take up to 30 minutes. Sometimes it's quick, but when it is done, you're going to receive an email. So I'm going to show you the email that I receive here. Yes, I'm going to copy the link address. And when you receive the email, you have here the email. This is the link that you receive here. And it will show you all the regions of AWS that contains resources. So here, for example, I'm going to look for Ireland, which contains some of my resources. And I'm going to select all the resources within Ireland. Okay, and tell Brainboard, import all these resources for me, and please write the Terraform code. So now Brainboard is importing all the resources. Here are all the resources have been imported perfectly. The graphic represents all what I have. And the magic is now I have the Terraform code written for me. So guys, you no longer write the Terraform code for existing infra, just take it to the next level. And like, this is something that we really hope will empower your daily life. And you have the complete resources with their configuration, and you have your Terraform code in few minutes instead of a few months. So I'm really happy that I showed you all this. And I'm going to just drink some water. And we can move now to the questions and answer. Yes. Okay, so let's select some of the questions for the remaining time we have, and we try to answer some of them. So yes.
I don't see any questions.
Do you have any questions? You answered all the questions?
Yes.
Okay, that's perfect. So again, thank you a lot for your time, availability, and for staying with us. We will be happy to build one of your use cases. So please reach to us if you want to build any kind of cloud infrastructure. We will be happy to help. Beyond Brainboard, we'll be happy to help you succeed either on learning the cloud, learning Terraform, building the cloud infrastructure. This is our goal, like to empower all engineers like us to build cloud infrastructures and be efficient in their work. And maybe Tarek will be sharing a link to our Slack, so you can also join our Slack. I have a last question. Integration with Hashicorp Vault for the Terraform state. Oh yes, it's supported. I'm going to show you quickly here. This is what is called remote backend. You have the possibility to configure the remote backend here, either on AWS S3 or Azure Blob Storage, and you will be the states will be saved encrypted into your backend. Thanks, everyone. Wish you a great day or nice evening or a good afternoon, and hope to see you the next time with another use case. We're probably building on Azure, so feel free to reach out to us to suggest any use case, and we'll be all happy to find you the next time. Take good care. Goodbye.